Welcome back to the Yoga Chat. I'm your host, Montana,
I'm your host, May.
and we're really excited to be here. And whether you like it or not, we have a beautiful guest. Last week we did Yoga Chat after dark, and I actually texted May after. I was like, should we post that? She was like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, we should post that. What do you mean? So, um, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you didn't, sorry. But now
Sorry.
we're back to regular
Actually,
scheduled
we're
program.
not sorry. I mean, it is
You're
what it
right.
is.
We're not
We're not
sorry.
sorry.
We're not fucking sorry. Can you hear my dogs?
No.
Okay, good. Love it. Um, all right. So, our amazing guest today is the one and only beautiful Carla Vido. Carla has been practicing yoga for 7 years. She's originally from Brazil. She moved to the United States almost 10 years ago as an au pair. And now she's a nomad based in the Bay Area of California. And a fun fact about Carla is that she first started yoga here in the United States. So she learned everything in English, and it's actually harder for her to teach in her native language of Portuguese than it is to teach in English. So when she teaches class, especially people that speak Portuguese, it ends up being this like bilingual experience of a mixed match of both languages. So welcome, Carla. How are you?
Thank you for having me here. I'm doing well. I'm feeling a little bit excited and nervous at the same time, but I'm good. How about you?
So good. This has been a long time coming, you guys. We tried to connect with Carla like probably over a month ago, but because she is truly a nomad that lives in a Sprinter van, she didn't have service. So Carla, will you tell us tell the listeners where you are right now in order to have service?
I am in a conference room and my climbing gym, and I asked the director if I could use the room to record this podcast. And he was like, yes, please go ahead and do it. It's all yours. So I'm in Santa Clara right now.
Cool. I don't know anything about California. I mean, I don't know enough about California to know. So I mean, are you regularly based in San Francisco?
Uh,
How about I'll just ask, tell us a little bit about you.
yes,
Wait,
I think it's
we
a
missed the very first question.
Good call, Miss May. And you keep remembering
What
this.
what are your astrological signs? If you know your sun sign or all three, what do you know what they are?
I do. I'm a Gemini sun.
Me too.
My yes,
hmm June 10th.
my my rising it's in Cancer and my moon is in Sagittarius.
Oh,
I can feel
fiery
all
and
of that.
emotional. A fiery emotional gal here.
Yes. You
I
hear
love
me
it.
then. Yeah.
I can relate.
And little
It's
background
a lot.
before, yeah, but it's a lot in such a beautiful way. Before I give Carla the mic, I just want to tell the listeners too, the way I know Carla because we graduated from our 300-hour YTT together. So I've never met her in person, but I feel like I know her better than I know some people that I've met in person hundreds of times. So I'm really excited to have you here. Without further ado, I was really jumping ahead, so I apologize. But will you give us a little background on who you are, where you come from, and essentially what led you to where you're at now within your life?
Wow. Yeah. I'm gonna try to be brief. I am Brazilian. I moved here in 2015 as an au pair. So my initial plan was just to stay 1 year doing the exchange program, improve my English, and then come back to Brazil, my little hometown, and just follow my career as a journalist. I did journalism in Brazil. I did the career for about 6 years or so. And then I just decided to take a leap of faith, which is like, let's just explore abroad for a little bit. But that actually never happened. I stayed in the United States after my first year, and I moved to California in 2017, end of 2016, beginning of 17, as for my second year as an au pair. And that was when I found yoga. My host mom, she had a lot of lower back pain, and she was like, yeah, try yoga, it's really good. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try it. And I was like, okay. And I was very intimidated in the very beginning, But once I started practicing, I was like, I think I like this, because at the time I used to, despite going to the gym, I was just like, nope, that's not for me. So it was kind of like a way to find my body in movement. Fast forward to 2019, I think, I did my first yoga teacher training, and I started to dive a little bit deeper into the practice itself. I think that's when I started to feel things for real. I was really away from my emotions, and we're just like living life on, I don't want to say on a superficial way, but it's kind of like in a superficial way. But yoga helped me to connect with my emotions, and I just wanted to deepen my practice as a yogi. So I did my first YTT, and then I just fell in love, and I don't see myself without yoga anymore. And after that, it came like my second teacher training with Yoga 6, which where I'm at Montana. But right now I feel like I am starting to realize that yoga is a very powerful tool for me, and I just want to share that with people. And if it resonates, people take. If it doesn't, people just leave it. But today I feel like I'm a full-time yoga teacher. I live on the road in my van, and I alternate in between South Bay area and North Bay area, which is like north, it's more like the area of San Francisco. And the south is the Santa Clara area where I am. So it's like an hour or so of distance in between. And my schedule, like you said, is like it's all over the place. You two probably understand that. But of course, there was like a lot of things happening in between getting where I am nowadays. I feel like whenever I find myself spinning out or falling off track, I try to use yoga and all the tools that I've learned throughout these past 7 or 8 years to bring myself back to center, kind of like.
Can I ask you a question? This stands out to me because I feel like I'm going through it right now. How did you realize that you were disconnected from your emotions to begin with? Like, because I feel like I've been going through that recently, where yoga has also done this for me, where I'm starting to realize that I was completely disconnected from my emotions. And I don't want to get into all that and make it about me, but how did you realize, like, what was the first moment it dawned on you that somehow yoga was helping you through this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was in a very toxic relationship, and I didn't realize that. And when I started my first yoga teacher training, I started to like sit in stillness anymore. And I was guided with like, what are you feeling? What are your emotions right now? I'm just like, I don't know. It was like there was a lot of confusion and a lot of inner questioning, and I was asking myself a lot of things. And eventually I came up to my mentors just like, what is going on? Like, what do I need to do? And I think with the sitting in stillness and allowing myself to cry, allowing myself to understand that confusion wasn't it wasn't a way for me to get away from what I was feeling, but also trying to understand what I was going on. And of course, this reflect on how I let people treat me in certain way or not. That's kind of like, okay, I think I wasn't in touch with all of this like big bag of things that I was going through until I started to question myself, until I sit in stillness and allow it myself to feel what I was feeling.
Dude, that's
Yeah,
yoga
I
off
love
the
that.
mat right there.
It really is because we can avoid stuff until for any
We
reason. We
can't.
can move fast and we can keep going and going and going and going. And it's like the second you're in that moment where you're actually just sitting with it, you can't avoid that. You can't hide from that. So that is the yoga. That is the yoga off the mat for sure. I
Yeah.
love that.
And at the same time, I feel like with the fast pace, like you mentioned, it was just like that, not prioritizing myself,
Mhm.
kind of like, I don't want to say numb what I was feeling, but it just didn't allow myself to see everything while I was piling stuff up on top of the things that I could have been looking at things before, if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah, it makes
We were
perfect sense.
we were just taking a class with one of our teacher friends who we talk a lot about, Dara Lasanti Weber, and she was teaching a class specifically just to us teachers. And she said something like the theme that she weaved throughout class was just like clearly for space holders and teachers. And at the end, we were like, all of us were like, man, that was a really like intentional theme. And like we all needed to hear it. And she was like, yeah. And she said something that really resonated with me after. She was like, yeah, because like it's like one day you're not taking care of yourself, which then turns into like a week, which then years go by. And it's like, oh my God, how long has it been since like I've really, put myself first and done the things that I need to do so that I'm not just like rolling through the motions. And like you said, not necessarily numbing, but just like putting your feelings and needs to the side. And sort of for me, it's always like I put my blinders on and I just like hustle and bustle through. And the next thing I know, I'm like, oh my God, it's been a month. Like, what even happened? So,
Yeah.
I have a question going
Yeah.
back. You mentioned that, when you were au pair, that and you were first introduced to yoga, you were intimidated by it, which is so normal. I feel like most people, if not all people, are. So if you could go back to that time, can you explain a little bit about like what made you feel intimidated about it originally?
Yeah. Um, the shapes, the shapes of the posture. I couldn't hold, well, first thing that I remember very vivid in my mind is that tree pose. I couldn't hold it. A tree pose with the toes down on the ground was just like, what is happening? Why I cannot do this thing? And if you think about it, it's a very basic, like air quote, standing posture. And I was like, is this really like the anatomy of the thing, or is just like myself and my mind trying to rushing through something that I cannot do it perfectly? So I think it was intimidating for me because I wasn't familiar with the postures. And eventually, when I came a little bit more comfortable, like moving and understanding what I would go, I always taken Vinyasa classes. I started like to enjoy taking classes anymore. And my first couple classes were in a regular gyms around the Bay Area. It wasn't like any specific yoga studio, but I think I was intimidating at first for everyone around doing it, and I wasn't being able to doing that. So it was like,
Mhm.
I think it's something that I need to work on, not looking at others' uh, job, or it's just like focusing on my own practice.
Mhm.
We've been
That's
talking
like
a lot about the language of yoga lately and just the importance of, something a teacher can say in a class or to you specifically that might make you feel incredibly safe and comfortable, or the exact opposite and incredibly unsafe and uncomfortable. Um, do you have any like vivid memories of one teacher saying one thing that just kind of made everything click in your head that made you feel safer, or the opposite?
I think nowadays I have that more clear. I think in the beginning I wasn't much aware of like, can words really affect a yoga practice? I don't know if it's because of the trainings that I've done and now that I'm really more aware, but yes, I think nowadays, either for the good and the bad, I think I can notice like, I'll never come back to this class, or just like, yes, I'm going to return to that teacher because he or she made me feel like empowered and keep going and allowing myself to express however I want to on my mat.
on that note, I have a question. I'm not going to use names, but hopefully you can read between the lines. You recently took a class in person with someone you're giggling, who I really, really love. I think I want to do this person's advanced training. They're amazing. And the you took a video of yourself, which your practice looked amazing, by the way. But the way that this person was using language, I was like, do you know what I'm
Bummer.
talking about?
Yes, I do.
So I guess I don't know how to ask this without, I don't want it. So, okay, here's how I can ask it. Say there's a renowned yoga teacher, like not every person is going to be amazing at everything. That would be insane. But there's a renowned yoga teacher and it's like they're put on a pedestal and they know XYZ really well. But when it comes to language, I was super unimpressed. So, being that you took this person's full class, I would love to know like what your experience was specifically around taking a renowned yoga teacher's class and how they did or didn't utilize language the way that maybe we would.
Yes, I resonate with that. I hear you. I think today the language could be used with a little bit more accessibility because there were a bunch of people in that room, and there were a couple cues that I personally didn't follow because it just didn't resonate with me. But again, it's just like knowing that I can choose or not to do
Mhm.
whatever that teacher is doing. I think it's important as teachers to understand that our words have a big impact in a yoga room, and it's not just because you are a really known teacher, you can just say whatever you want. Um, I don't know if that answered your
It
question.
does. It does. Because I've been thinking recently about like, I don't know how to really put it into words because I haven't said it out loud, but like if you're teaching a room full of a bunch of people that quote know yoga or that like are regulars to your class, kind of like cutting corners in terms of how I guide students into poses. And I can't seem to do it. Like I, and I don't think that it's right or wrong. I don't think that there's like a right or wrong answer, but just personally, it's like, even whenever it's like every single person, and I see teachers that are taking my class as students, and they're like, they've said to me, like, can you just freaking say down dog? Um, and sometimes down dog I will because it's down dog, but like, can't you just tell us the pose and like we know what to do? And I'm like, I can't. I just
But not
can't.
everyone
Like,
does.
yeah, and like even if a teacher, if a practitioner has been practicing for decades and they know what a pose is, and you are sure that you call the pose the same name as them, like they've never been in it in that moment. And so as soon as you hear like Warrior 3, your present mind shuts off and you go to what you know, rather than if you're like shift your weight forward, lift your back heel to hip height, then it's like you're in the present because you've never done Warrior 3 in this moment before. And it's never the same, which is why we keep going back to yoga, right? So yeah, I think basically like to make a long story short, I'm toying with this like how like I'm like, am I being dramatic? Am I crossing the line of how important this is? Or like am I passionate about how important this is? You know what I
You're
mean? Look at
passionate
me.
about it.
I
You're
was about to
passionate
say the
about it.
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
And just
and
piggy,
you should be because it matters. It matters a lot. And like you said, I've been in Warrior 3 8 billion times, but today if I did Warrior 3, my legs would shake. I would want to break out in 2 seconds because I'm not feeling like myself. And for that reason, if I were to step in a yoga space and a teacher who knows me and expects a certain, practice from
Expects.
me, and and that's the thing is like you can have the same group of people every week, and I have those classes too, like my 9 a.m. power class. Those
Hmm.
people come in every week, they know what to expect, they come week after week, they're used to it, but they're not always the same people every single week at 9 a.m. on Friday. So I can't like, and I think the same thing all the time. I'm cueing too much, I'm saying too much to a room of people that already know, but not everybody feels the same way they did the last time they were in there. And so if you have to say 2 or 3 extra words to make sure that everybody feels comfortable, oh well, it's okay.
Yeah.
and
You're
just
not the
And
magic.
present.
just piggybacking on what you said, Montana, about like the queuing and everything. I'm gonna give a brief example. Like I have this person, and this person practiced yoga for I think 20 or I don't know 15 years, something like that, pretty much a regular. And the same thing, language in the class, it's important. And every time that I go towards the peak pose, I don't call the pose by the name. I call the pose by breaking down. And if not every week, but mostly I stick with Yoga 6 language by bringing like body part action, and all that stuff rather than the posture. And everyone says like the way how you cue, it's very unique and it helps me a lot. I was like, glad this is what I want. Because it's really hard for us when you have a room full of people and you're like, you have beginners, intermediates, and advanced. I was like, how can I bring everyone into the same room to experience yoga, not just like perform yoga as like a peak? And I think
Yes.
this is like something that changed in my mind as a yoga teacher. I'm like, I want to offer the experience of yoga and offer variety. This is not a show off thing. It's just like, how can you feel
Bingo.
in the pose? How can you try something new? Even because sometimes when you call the posture, it's just like it can trigger something else for a person that, I don't know, had like a bad relationship, for lack of better words,
Yeah.
into that specific pose. So I think language, it's very, very important in a yoga room. Yeah.
Another question I have is, do you still teach at a Yoga 6 studio?
No.
I didn't think so, which brings up another point that gets me so excited. Like, so I facilitate bridge trainings for Yoga 6, and when I put on my master trainer hat, I always make sure to emphasize the importance of like, this is a way. There are many ways. Like, you can like this or not like this. And if you're willing to use these tools within a Yoga 6 space, great, this is for you. If you're not willing to use these tools within a Yoga 6 space, and like totally fine, then this isn't for you. What I see in you, Carla, which is so cool, is that like you are truly the epitome of taking tools from what you've learned, whether it be Yoga 6 or your 200-hour or taking other teachers' classes, like wherever you gain your tools from, and being like, this resonates, so I'm going to use it, and this doesn't, so I'm not. And I just think like that it's so easy for yoga teachers to look at different methodologies and be like, nope, not for me. And I'm like, wait, but I guarantee within that methodology, there's going to be something for you. And by taking what does resonate, then you can blend and create this beautiful, unique thing that's yours, that is a product of all of your teachers and all the methodologies that you've studied, which I like have goosebumps. That's the juice, being
Yeah.
able to humbly do that. So where are you teaching now?
I am teaching at the Movement Gyms Bay Area. So I teach in 4 different locations: Sunnyvale, Belmont, San Francisco, and Santa Clara. And I also teach firefighters trauma-informed yoga yes. It's one of my highlights of the week, being able to help the first responders. And I also have corporate yoga that I go to companies around like tech, where I'm like in the middle of Silicon Valley. So I teach like around some companies as a contractor as well. I offer Portuguese classes online for Brazilian community, and I also teach private groups as well.
I've always
So cool.
wondered, with trauma-informed yoga, what if you could sum it up, and I know that the training for that is incredibly like intense, but if you could sum it up in just a short little way, what is the difference between how you would teach like a traditional yoga class versus how you would teach your trauma-based classes to your first responders?
Yeah, for sure. So there are different trauma informed classes. The specific one for first responders, it's because they have injuries after injuries and after injuries, physically speaking. And the trauma side of it and the situation, it's related to the fight or flight response, right? So they work, see a lot, do a lot, and besides their regular work, they also have like other stuff in the calendar, which I was shocked on how much stuff they have to do daily besides their regular shift. So I think the way how we do it, it's with minimal cueing, because their mind is already rushing all the time. Usually there are no musics, no bell, mostly because bell sometimes could trigger into something that is like, oh, I need to go, or if something comes up, and sometimes a call come up and then a bell rings. Vocabulary, language, which is pretty similar with the language that I use in my regular classes, but it's less talking. And it's more like a yin/restore. So a few poses targeted mostly hips and shoulders because of the injuries that they have. Let me see if I'm not missing anything. No touching. And every time if I step off my mat, I need to verbalize what I'm doing, because since they are always on that state of awareness or attention with things around, I cannot just simply stand up and walk towards someone's like, hey, I'm standing up right now and I'm going to walk behind you to check if your block is well positioned, X, Y, and Z. So there's a lot of couple like small things that like details that I need to just be aware of before doing the proper action itself.
So it's really like trying to get them in touch with their rest and digest state.
Exactly.
And out
Yes.
of the okay.
A lot of breathing. Usually we end with a mini session of yoga nidra, but there's like eventually in the very beginning, it's a breath work, a gentle twist, and not many of abruptly forward folds because of lower back injury. So it's like these kind of stuff that we just need to.
Is this something that they are required to do for their job, or is it something that they choose to do?
They're required to do. Some
Okay.
stations are required to do, and it works in the as a contractor with this company called Fireflax that I've done the training with, and then they have like this week you have this amount of hours to do it, and you guys gonna do yoga, and yeah,
That's awesome.
That is. And have you had guys that like, or what, men and women? Can't believe I just said guys. Like they're the only first responders. Kill me.
That was so off brand for you.
That was so off brand for me. I'm mad at myself. Have you had people that have come in very adverse to the idea of being, quote unquote, forced to do it, and then found this place where they're like, wow, this has so much value?
Yes. Yeah. I've been teaching them a year actually. And in the very beginning, I could feel the resistance. I'm like, fine, let's stretch. I'm like, no, this is not just stretch, guys. We're going to work a little bit into the breath. And then eventually I worked my way out into like, hey, how are you feeling? And notice this, notice that. And I think this is part of the training that you do it, like let them be and feel, but not as much as the silence will let the intrude thoughts come into the way. So it's kind of like a fine line to navigate through it. But I think the way how I teach, actually, it's a bit, I always leave room for even for them or regular students. Like if you're feeling tired today and you just want to lay down in Shavasana and rest, please do it so. And I had a guy one day, just like the moment I said that, he just lay down on his back and rested, because sometimes they have sleep deprivation. And I'm like, I don't want to move. I need to rest. And I would rather you sleep and take a nap on your mat and wake up re-energized, ready for your shift, rather than just like keep thinking bad stuff or other stuff while you're moving.
Totally.
That's really cool.
So, I have a question about how crazy does it feel to you knowing that you came to the United States to get better at English and now what you do full time is like so rooted in language and the nuances of language?
It blows my mind still. It's just like, am I really living this life? Sometimes when I sit and I pause and to feel what I'm feeling, I'm like, I cannot believe it that I guided myself into a regular yoga class and I started to dive deep into it and was like, wow, this is really first helping me, not being selfish, but it's just like I need to be calm and rooted and centered to help people. So it's just like it's insane. It's insane. I don't know how to describe that, but it's like it feels surreal sometimes, for lack of better words, just like
Mhm.
being able to do what I love and still help people and in a language that it's not my own. It's like, yeah,
Ugh.
sometimes it feels weird.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
yeah.
I think May and I can relate very much so in our own ways, but like English is the only language that we both speak. So it's crazy what happens when you open yourself up to what's meant for you ultimately, whether that's yoga or whatever else. Um, so our last question that we always ask everyone is, do you think yoga can change the world? Yes or no, and why?
Is there in between?
Yeah, there's
Be
whatever answer.
anything.
Yeah, if you say middle, that would be the first time we hear it. And I don't know if you've listened, Carla. We had Emily. Yeah, and did you hear her answer? I know.
And it
She's gonna
made
change everybody. I
and
know.
it made me
Me and
think
Montana were both like this the whole
because
time.
exactly. And if you
Hmm.
think about it, it's like who can change the world? I think people can change the world. Actions can change the world. If I can be a better person doing something that will have a ripple effect into others, then I believe that a collective change can happen. But I also believe that if someone doesn't want to change, that's not going to happen. So, returning to your question, do I think yoga can change the world? Maybe. I think as a yoga teacher, I do raise the flag of yoga as a tool of self-study, self-conscious, and trying to live on a lighter way. But at the same time, yoga itself as a practice, I don't think it will sustain the change.
Yeah,
That is the juice.
just like unless us as individuals choose to continue to show up, it's like you don't just do yoga once and then you did yoga. It worked, right?
You
Exactly.
changed the
Um,
world. You did yoga once.
Yeah, like that would be awesome and also so boring.
Yeah.
So
Um,
my mom told me once when I was young, it was like after I had gotten broken up with, and she said, I was in the room with her and my aunt, and my aunt goes, "People never change." And my mom goes, "People change, but people only change when they really, really want to." And
mhm.
so I think what it boils down to is the desire for the change or the desire for the inquiry, the desire to get to know yourself better, the desire to connect with your emotions, to open up, to be less guarded, to be more kind to yourself. All of those things, there has to be like the awareness or the willingness for it to happen first. And when you invite that in, I think it can change the world. But it has
There's
to
the
be
juice.
invited. This really, I can't believe we ended up cracking the pepper and
I
I
love
explaining
thought it
this.
this.
was the pepper thing.
Yeah, I know.
Why did we
I,
ever think this was squeezing juice? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. I have no, how would you, because how else do you do it?
Oh, that's the
Um,
fresh cracked pepper on your Caesar salad.
yeah, people have people that like I know that we know in person, May and I, that listen to the yoga chat have been like, crack that pepper. And I'm like, oh my God, it's supposed to be juice. But anywho, Carla, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I'm so happy we finally got to do this. You're so amazing. And Yeah,
Also,
I
you're
hope that,
changing the world with yoga by teaching it to people
yeah,
that are first
you are.
responders that save other people. So you are rippling because those people are better and they're saving people every day. So like that is the
Mhm.
one little small part of changing the world that you have a very big part in, which is awesome.
Thank you so much. It
Yeah.
helps me to keep doing the job.
Yeah.
It can't be easy. I can't imagine that it's easy. Will you tell everyone where to find you on social media?
Oh yeah. You can find me on Instagram at Carla V Yoga. And over there, there's just like silly stuff, yoga stuff, van life stuff, and in between.
Carla has a really fun Instagram, so I highly recommend giving her a follow. Also, I can't remember if I told you this or not, but I'm going to Rio for 2 weeks in October.
No shit,
Yeah, so
really?
I'm going to reach out to you and get all the recommendations because we don't have anything planned except for our flights, like nothing. We need to like make
Fun.
the whole itinerary.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I'm so excited. I've never been. I've never been to Brazil before. So
Yeah,
I'm
you're gonna love
stoked.
it.
That's what everyone keeps saying. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. I love you
Thank you
both.
for thank you for having me again.
Of
Thank you.
course.
This was
It was
great.
a pleasure.
It was. All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
This is terrible. Have a good one.